Heather McDonald has got the juiciest scoop. When you're on the road, when you're on the go, Juicy Scoop is the show to know. She talks Hollywood tales, her real life Mr. Segment serial data and serial sister. You'll be addicted and addicted fast to the #1 tabloid real life podcast. Listen in, listen up. Whoop whoop. Heather McDonald, Juicy Scoop.
Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. Okay, I've got a super juicy show for you, and it's basically two parts. The first part is a super juicy interview I did with Shannon Ivy, who has gone deep into Epstein Island, and what has unfolded in the last month. You got to listen to this. Then I have return hilarious guest, Real Housewives former producer and funny host Carlos King is here. We're going to talk all things Bravo reality shows, who got fired, what the prison sentence means, what's the future of Housewives. So juicy, so funny. So now for a really good show. Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. I have a return guest, Shannon Ivy. Welcome back. How are you doing?
Doing great. How are you? You're looking fabulous.
Oh, thank you. So I had Shannon on before because she's a journalist. She teaches at the university in Texas, but she also runs an incredible Ivy Farms, which is the name of her TikTok and social media that helps children in foster care that have been through traumatic experiences. And I came across your page and we connected. And while I was in the British Virgin Islands and the Virgin Islands, you popped up, of course, because I follow you. And I was like, this is so crazy, this coincidence that I'm here about this Attorney General of the Virgin Islands, Regina George, who filed a lawsuit and then subsequently was fired very, very shortly after with really no explanation to the public and really no media attention on why this is so incredibly juicy. And so I want you just explain this whole situation and how it pertains to Epstein and, G-Max is what I like to call her, Ghislaine, and the fact that now she's been convicted and a lot of things are popping up where not one other sex trafficker has ever been named.
As of December 29th.
And I want to...
1 year that she's in jail, that G-Max is in jail, and for trafficking children to no one.
Right. And in saying that, no one's saying that she shouldn't be there.
Right.
But we're saying, where are these people? And why are they not being exposed? Okay, so now let's get into what this woman, Regina George, is. What is her background and how long has she been in the job and all of that?
Okay, so first off, her name is Denise George.
Sorry. Regina George is from Mean Girls. Denise George. Sorry, Denise George.
I was actually
apologize.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So Denise George has been the one lone holdout of hope in the Epstein case. I've been following her since the beginning because she was appointed by the current Governor Albert Bryan, and she was appointed by him. And we'll get into that in a minute, but she has been from the beginning saying, okay, I don't care who the money is. I don't care what I need to do. We're going to find answers because this is on my home turf and it's unacceptable. And so she went after the Epstein estate and she won at the end of November $105 million. And that was to go in various places. So one, it's going to several of the victims of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. But number two, it was to recoup the tax dollars that Epstein got. And this is where it gets crazy. So, and let me kind of give you a hierarchy. When Epstein was kind of in his full force, there was a man named Governor DeYoung. And his first lady, Cecil DeYoung, was Epstein's office manager in the Virgin Islands for it's Southern Trust Company, which got 80% of a tax reduction, and I want to get this right. 80% tax reduction. 90% tax exemption, and then 100% tax exemption on gross receipts and excise tax, which that's goods and services. So just like let that sink in. So he's got 100% tax exemption on goods and services. And what were his goods and services? Right?
I don't know. What are his goods and services?
Well, he was trafficking human beings, right? So, and he's getting a tax exemption for that. Well, the person who signed off on that is the current governor, because he was working as the chairman of the economic development. So under the former governor. So do you see the connection?
Right. So these two governors have been highly tied to benefiting by having Epstein on their land. And so in comes Denise George. And Denise George was like, okay, not only am I going to get back that money for the U.S. Virgin Islands, which if you've been there, you know, there's a lot of people suffering there. Yes.
And the infrastructure is terrible. And so she goes to get back the money that the current governor signed off on. And so she's recouping something that our current governor, the Governor Albert Ryan, gave to him in the first place. So then she starts to go after the real money, which was JP Morgan. And she filed it in New York City. And the sources say that she filed this huge lawsuit in New York City without bringing in the current governor. Well, I mean, anyone with half of a brain cell would see that that would be a bit of a conflict of interest to bring in the current governor, because clearly they were all involved in this. They don't say that, but so she filed it on December 27th of 2022. Biden was there, and this is where it gets sketchy with like putting this on the internet, because my channel got completely screwed when I just showed the truth. Now, is there a connection with Biden? I have no idea. But Biden was there on...
Because Biden has owned a home there for many decades, right?
No. He uses the home of Bill and Connie Neville. And they've got a mansion there. They own a company called US Viking, which is the software that runs all of the wiring for AP, so Associated Press. So everyone who's a journalist, I know. Now, I'm not saying there's a connection there. We're not saying that because the internet doesn't like us to assume.
No.
And it's fair. That's fair because there's no proof. But it's just a coincidence.
Yeah, coincidences are fun. Mm-hmm.
And then the next day, Denise gets fired. And there's nothing that says, hey, she got fired over the Epstein case, other than sources that, are telling their local journalists that, she didn't keep the governor in the loop. And this has been an ongoing problem because all of them were involved in it, I'm sure. And that's assuming, but there is, correlation does not equal causation, but it sure is raising a lot of questions.
So now what happens to Regina? So what happens to Denise? What happens to Denise George now? Has she given any interviews? Is she just being silent? Does she ever work again? Does she go to, Does she go?
This is what sucks. Yeah, she did give a statement, but against a paywall of the New York Times. And so, she gave a statement to the New York Times, but you can't see it unless you have a subscription to the New York Times, which sucks for the entire universe right now, because we're all looking at this global sex trafficking ring of children. I'm not going to call them young ladies because they're not. They're kids. They're below the age of 17. And we can't see what her response was. And her response was, of course, very diplomatic, thanking the governor for appointing her, but also kind of getting a dig in there saying, look, we're going after a really large case, and she's been removed from the case. The case has not been struck as of right now in New York City. And her second in command is now part of that and leading that charge. But she was the fire, and it's really disappointing to see that she's been fired.
And, and not knowing any other people besides Prince Andrew, which, by the way, in all the Harry stuff and all that's been going on, he doesn't even talk about his uncle. like, we would have so much respect if he was like, you know what, Megan and I are really grossed out how my family handled this, and that is really why we left. That's why we left. And then because we left, now I'm going to give you the dirt about my brother pushing me on the dog bowl, okay? And how I was a victim. I mean, I talk more about that on the show, but I'm just saying, like, why is no one talking about Prince Andrew?
Why is
in
no
all
one
this royal stuff?
Prince Andrew? Why is no one talking about the fact that the reason why he is who he is because he's been on the backs of oppressing people for how long now? And to me, it's just that family has been oppressing people for
beginning of time, whatever.
What was that?
I guess the beginning of time, or as soon as
I think I lost you. Hang on.
Oh, wait.
There you are.
Okay, sorry. No, you said that family has been oppressing people. Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
And so why is it that they are not discussing these things? I have no idea. And yes, I would have more respect if they talked about Prince Andrew because he's a skis.
So I have a very simple question that I've wondered about for a long time. Now, we had these victims, survivors. They came forward. They gave testimony. They are who got Epstein, arrested and behind bars, and until he, quote unquote, killed himself. And then we have, Maxwell. Do you think? Because this is what I think. Maybe they gave names, but maybe they didn't. Because if you're a 16-year-old girl and you're being trafficked, do you really know, could you really recognize one old rich guy from another and be like, well, this was the president of this financial institution. Well, this was a politician in Brazil. You wouldn't really know. And so that's kind of why I'm wondering why we don't have these names as well as cover up. But maybe that's why as well, too, because 20 years ago, could they identify them today? And how would they identify them if they're, being trafficked?
Well, I think that there's two parts to that. As far as from the victim and the survivors, I think there's so much trauma involved that there are so many things that could happen. They could have been drugged. I mean, most trafficking victims that we've worked with, drugs are a huge part of it. Being inebriated in some way is a huge part of it. But the trauma involved of just not knowing what's going on because they're so young and they've never been part of something like this. I actually think they know exactly who was part of this because Epstein was known to be incessantly paranoid. And there were loads and loads and loads of video that was found in a safe that magically disappeared because they didn't have the right judge's orders. And so as a result, a lot of this video got magically, it just magically disappeared. And so I think they know exactly who is part of this.
The officials know who? Whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they know exactly who it was.
Absolutely. And I always thought, that's really how he made his money, was that I think he would, this is just my opinion, have relationships with these powerful people and men, invite them to the island or the home or whatever, have a crazy night, which involved using and trafficking these children, and then be like, you better give me this money or give me this donation because I've got video of you, in relations with a 16-year-old.
So the former CEO, I think his name is Leon Black of Apollo, paid Epstein $158 million. $158 million. Now, why was that? The deeper I've gotten into this, honestly, the more I see that blackmail was currency. And I really do believe that a lot of these numbers that you see, I mean, it's hundreds of millions of dollars, is about, they were able to blackmail some very powerful people. And there's a lot of money involved in human trafficking. I mean, whenever the various human trafficking organizations say, oh, it's $1 billion industry. Well, it really truly is $1 billion industry where they are trafficking not only children, but human beings all over the world. And so I think, honestly, now that I've been researching this particular story for as long as I have. I think that Epstein was just a pawn in a much larger scheme, and he was the fall guy. I think Ghislaine Maxwell is the fall guy. I think that there are some much larger people afoot, which is why Denise George was so important. She was the director of the white collar crimes unit in the U.S. Virgin Island for several years. And so she went after the money and she knew how to do it. And so that's exactly what she was doing. She was uncovering, I mean, there's a 38-page, heavily redacted piece that's on the internet that you can find of what she submitted to a New York court, and it's all about the money. And so Epstein was part of it, and he's definitely the face of this, but there's so much money involved in this, and that's exactly what Denise George had uncovered, and that's exactly, in my opinion, why she was fired.
Just so disappointing. And then with you really being the only person that I even saw, and you know how much I'm on the internet and TikTok and everything, you said now that what do you think your channel's been shadow banned? Are you getting very little views? What's happening?
No. So I got a community guidelines violation that threatened my entire channel. It's the first one that's ever happened in all the years, a couple of years I've been doing this. And it was about stating that Biden was on the island a day before Denise George got fired. And that's all I did. I didn't make an assumption. I even said in the comments that, correlation is not causation. But the very fact that you say this is not a red or a blue problem, this is not Democrat or Republican, I don't give a shit what you subscribe to. When kids are getting hurt, go after the bad guy. I don't care who that ends up being. Just go after them.
I mean, I think it's safe to say it's really powerful, rich people. Yes. Again, Republican, Democrat, Independent, who the hell cares? Yep. I totally agree. And I just mentioned it on my Patreon, and I got several comments that were like, Heather, it was the governor that fired her, not Biden. And I'm like, well, I don't think I said Biden. I just was saying, hey, this is an interesting story that popped up while I was in the Virgin Islands, that a day after he arrived on his vacation here, this happened. And I think that's just interesting. That's what I always say. People go, when Heather says interesting. Yes, it's interesting. It's, it's a coinka-dinky.
Why are these things it's like saying Voldemort in Harry Potter. If you say, okay, that Bill Clinton was a huge part of Epstein's life, that's true. Why is it Trump was a huge part of Epstein's life? Why is that so frightening for people to go down that road and actually just ask questions? It doesn't matter what the answer is if kids got hurt. I don't care who it is. And I guess, what I've come up with, Heather, is that people just don't know what a trafficked human being looks like after they are trying to pick up the pieces. And that's what I've tried to do on my channel, is just show what that looks like. Because if people actually knew what it was to pick up the pieces after you have been sold to rich men, I think that they wouldn't care either whether or not someone they voted for was part of hurting a kid. You just don't care anymore. I mean, honestly, I've told people I'm really close to in my family, I wouldn't care if it was you. If there was evidence that, you were hurting a child in this way, I would be coming after you too, because it's just so damn damaging. And to see a kid who professionals are saying there's no fixing them, there's nothing that we can do to help them. And just because they were a toy given to rich men, fuck that. I'm sorry. It's just, I don't care if you get, yourself upset because we're asking questions about someone that you really admire, get over it.
I totally agree. And okay, so here's the interesting thing about my trip. So I took a big Royal Caribbean cruise back in 2019 in June of 2019. And in that, we took a day trip and went to one of these things, and we went by. And the guy, he was from Atlanta, and he was giving us a little tour. Now, this is 2019. Now, I knew about Jeffrey Epstein from back when
before he died, or
yes, no, this before he got in trouble again.
Okay.
So this is the only way I know the Epstein name was from the 2008, weekend jail situation.
Right.
And but I, wasn't super familiar. And he goes, oh, and this is Jeffrey Epstein's island, and look it up, but presidents have been there, and da-da-da. And so I'm like, raise my hand, and I'm like, wait a minute, like, let's talk more. And he was like, I can't say anything more. And then he's like, came up to me after, he's like, don't say anything to anybody that I even said this on the tour. Okay.
Okay, wait a minute. You said da-da-da and said this. What are you allowed to say what he...
He just was like saying, look it up. And no one knew what he was talking about, because this is before the second wave of Epstein. And I remembered from 2008. So I was like, wait, oh my God, I think I screamed out, he's a pedophile. And he's like, okay, like, and then he stopped talking about it. And then I go, wait, I want to ask you more questions. And he's like, no, and don't tell anybody that I said this, because I could get fired from the tour company. But he was just kind of having fun because he's from Atlanta.
Well,
so then,
and the governor, they were all
involved in it. Yeah, and he knew it, and he knew he can't talk about it. So now we come back this year, and so we had our own boat that my husband was captaining. So we go around the Epstein Island, and I mean, it really is gorgeous. We went around the side. It has this big, beautiful beach, and I'm like, look, I know that there are people that may have visited, been on the plane, and were invited there, that did not partake in hurting children. Rich people invite you on vacations, and they're powerful, and you want to go to the party, and all of a sudden you're taking a photo with Harvey Weinstein. Does not mean that you knew everything. I understand that part of it. Because I'm like, yeah, this is incredible. So my question is, what is happening to that island? Do you know? Like, is someone trying to buy it, and where will the money go?
They can't sell it. And it was named in the lawsuit from November. Half the proceeds are going to go to the Virgin Islands, but they can't sell it. Like, they can't give the thing away. In my opinion, I think that they need to destroy everything on it, and they need to make it a sanctuary. They need to completely flush that, get some folks on there to bless the island and get all the bad juju off, and let it go back to being something for the people of the U.S. Virgin Islands, because it's
no, it should just be a public island beach that you could anchor your boat. There should be a restaurant there. You can hang out. I'm just saying, like, why not make it profitable? Because it is really pretty, and the beach is really pretty. I don't know. Make it somehow better. I would not make it an orphanage. I would not make it anything with kids. I would just make it like something that, hey, if you want to go to this beach because it's a gorgeous beach, you can. And maybe in 10 years, people will go there and not always associate. I don't know. But what was the deal with the white thing at the top that I remember people said there were drone footage, and who knows if that's true, that it was like, I don't know if that was the massage place or the sanctuary, or do you ever remember hearing about that little white building at the top? It's like a square.
The dome. It got ruined in a hurricane, which I'm a person of faith. And I think that, I think the universe was just like, fuck that island, fuck that dome, and just destroy. Am I allowed to curse? I'm so sorry. Yeah. Okay. And destroyed that, the marker of that island, because I do think that it was probably a trigger for the victims and the survivors of this. I do. There's a lot of speculation of what was in the dome, but no, I've never seen anything definitive, but a lot of people have said that it was very ritualistic, which I would believe, because Epstein, the Harvard connection with Epstein was so super creepy. He was into, he wanted to cryo freeze his penis. And he wanted to make a race of Epstein kids. And he was studying how to create more superhumans with his sperm. And he was doing that through Harvard. That was one of the things he wanted to do in New Mexico, was get women pregnant and just make like a baby factory, which, that is happening, and of course, this is another Voldemort subject that, you're not allowed to talk about, that women's wombs are being rented out for rich people. They are. It happens in Ukraine. It happens in Russia. It happens in the United States. It happens on Facebook. And it's, he was a very ritualistic, weird, eccentric human being. And the more photos that have gotten out of the way he lived in New York, and it's just, he had eyeballs all along his hallway in his New York townhouse.
Yeah, the art was so weird.
Yeah, it was just like he was a very ritualistic, creepy guy. So I would assume that the dome was something along those lines, but who knows? But it got
I just
destroyed.
remember seeing like dome, like somehow not dome. Drone like footage somehow, and you never know like how much was true of it. But it does stand by itself. It does look very odd. Mm-hmm. It does look really weird, and then there's like
destroyed. Mother Nature was like, fuck those people.
But it's still the white part. I mean, the main part of it is still there. And then there's like two houses, and then there's like the beach that you come in, and there's all these signs, no trespassing, no trespassing, no trespassing, all over it.
Did you have, like, you seem to be a very intuitive person. Like when you were around in 2018 and then now, did you feel like bad vibes? Or did you just look at it and you're like, oh, it's a really beautiful place? Like, did you sense anything when you were around that place?
Yeah. I mean, right when the guy said it, I was like, yeah, Epstein's a pet. Like, I remembered the story, but I it's crazy that all happened in 2008. And then he was having dinner parties after that. Chelsea Handler has talked about it herself. She got invited by Katie Couric. She went to a dinner there with Woody Allen and Sun Yi. And I remember her being like, I went to Jeffrey Epstein's townhome. And I'm like, isn't that like the pedophile guy? Like, and I never, and again, because of what we were fed, it was like, oh, he hired, whatever his defense was, he hired some, prostitutes that might have been 17. It's sort of like the way it was fed to us. And then, of course, now we know everything. Then he went to the middle schools of the poorer neighborhoods. And I mean, just horrific of what happened in that case. And, but like, in defense of people, like I said, that may have gone there. And so you don't always like, you're rising in clout and you're becoming a star and people are inviting you to cool stuff. And you don't really go and Google everything before you go, yeah, pick me up at 8, I'll go, So. Well,
and I think we're looking all at this also through the eyes of modernity, because.
What's modernity mean? I don't even know what that word means.
Like modern day eyes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because in 2008, I don't think people understand, it's only recent that we've started to publicly value 17-year-olds as a kid. And going, okay, their brains aren't fully functioning yet. They're not fully grown. They're important members of our society, but they also can be vulnerable to power structure. Back then in 2008, if you said a 17-year-old, was a prostitute, they would have blamed the 17-year-old. Oh, that's her fault for being there. It's her. What was she wearing? And I think in 2022, we've become more evolved. But when people talk about the 2008 story, like, why didn't anybody know? Well, it's because everybody was still blaming women then.
Right.
It's a very recent thing that we've started going, maybe it's not the prostitutes. It's maybe the, the demand.
And we know now that they were much younger than 17. Like I said, they were at the middle school and these girls were desperate, and they'd even tell their friend, if you want to make $200, like, come with me and be with this gross guy, because they were poor and desperate.
Well,
and got roped into it as well, and got, it's horrible.
And that he was part of he went on vacation to a camp, an artist camp in, what was it, Michigan? And he built a home there. Where there was a bunch of kids who were artists around him. There were the townhouse, or the piece of property that he has in New York that was recently sold. What used to be owned by the Catholic Church. It was, I believe it was an orphanage of some kind. And then it was turned into this really high-end private, I believe, girls' school. And he bought that piece of property. Like, he was a sick human being. And P.S., everybody fucking knew it in 2008. They knew it 10 years later. All of the people who were like, we didn't know, like when Bill Gates had that interview, which by the way, if you say him on the internet, your channel gets messed with too. But Bill Gates knew. They knew. Everybody knew. It's just they decided that it, just like Harvey Weinstein, well, that's just kind of the breaks of that business. He's really well connected. You don't want to make him mad. I mean, I was at a party in LA one time. Did I tell you this? I was at a party in LA one time, and I was at a sushi bar and I was broke, and they had this huge spread. I can't remember what party it was. And I'm like sitting there getting food, and this guy comes up and he pushes himself into the back of me, right? And I turn around and I'm like, who the fuck are you? And I was like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. And I mouthed off to him. And the person I was with came up to me and they were like, do you have any idea who that was? And I was like, I don't give a shit who that was. I don't want his old wrinkly balls in my back. And they were like, that was Harvey Weinstein. And I was like, I don't care. And I didn't know who he was. But it was like I had just desecrated like some sacred thing because I told this guy to get bent because he stuck his like thing in my back. But that was the acceptable way to behave, to protect people like that. And P.S., everyone at the party was yelling at me, telling me, and I was young, telling me that what an idiot I was for mouthing off to the guy. And I was like, so it's okay for him just to walk up to a perfect stranger and like shove himself at a sushi bar? No. And I just probably.
I remember I had a friend who was setting me up with this like very powerful music producer guy that was like way older, and I was like, he's kind of funny. I go, but I'm not interested. She's like, well, he really likes you. I'm like, he's like so much older than me, right? I go, I'm not interested. She goes, Heather, I mean, you're 27 and he likes you and you're like the oldest girl that he's dated. This guy was like 57. And I'm like, oh, so I should like grab onto this while I can? Like, just the fact that people, I mean, just talk like that. And yes, it's all, that aspect of it is very true. And I will say.
But that's how they got these young girls with Les Wexner. They were like, do you want a career in modeling? Because this guy owns Victoria's Secret, or
right.
Donald Trump owning Miss Universe.
Yeah.
This was such a good lead-in line for, artists who had stars in their eyes who wanted a career.
Right.
You can have a career and you could be near these powerful men. And if you're young, if you don't have a support system at home going, hey, don't be dumb, Shannon.
Yeah.
Or if you don't have a little bit of moxie or street smarts going, you don't get to, shove your old wrinkly balls at me. You're like, I want to advance in a career. And that's how they got into a lot of these really beautiful girls who just, were vulnerable to them. And it makes me sick that Denise George was the only person. And if you notice everything about this case, Heather, women were often the ones who were going, I don't care who is involved, I'm going to go after them anyway. It really was. It's been women. And it just, it makes me mad that she's been fired.
So now do you think, and then we're going to wrap up, but do you think that, because everyone thought like, okay, well, when is Ghislaine going to like spill the beans? And I'm like, well, what? It wouldn't even help her if she spilled the beans now. It would almost only hurt her because she has to do these, 30 years, no matter what. The time to have done it, which she may have done it, and they still didn't go after them because who they are, would have been leading up to trial to like cut a deal. What do you think happened with all of that?
Well, she already did. So Judge Prescott in New York City, Virginia Giuffre went to Judge Prescott and says, I want you to open up all the names. I don't want anything redacted. And Ghislaine
and Virginia was like, the most like vocal
public
and well-known publicized victim. And she is the one that went to the nightclub with Prince Andrew and has the photo and all of that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So continue.
And so she went and she was like, I want everybody's names out there. And Ghislaine at first was like, no. But then after she was convicted, she was like, go ahead, open it. It was Judge Prescott in New York City who said, nah, it's really gonna be bad for a lot of people. So we're not gonna redact, or we're not going to open up a lot of them, because we don't know if it was just like you were saying earlier, that they just like happenstance knew each other. But no, this is of public interest. There were, there are a lot of very powerful people involved. This is a very public case. She has zero right to say, no, we're going to keep these under wraps. And it's very interesting to look at Judge Prescott's background too, because she's got money in a lot of different places that have connections, and it's like a spider web of power. So we do have the names. The people in our justice system have decided to protect them. And it's like money is winning out. So Ghislaine Maxwell has said, fine, open it up. But it's our justice system that has said, maybe not.
But could she ever, write a big long essay and send it to you? Like, do you think she'll ever just be like, I've got a fucking juicy story to tell, or write a book from prison, or give an interview, or whatever, or no, because then she would be killed?
I don't know, because I don't understand what it is to live in a body and a soul that could carry the weight of so many victims and then shut up about it. I don't understand it.
No, I think she's just, a really evil, soulless person. I think you're right. So maybe she just doesn't really care. Yeah. I don't know.
And like after I had this like evil feeling about her after I read the instructions that she gave the staff, and how you remember that? It was so
remind us.
It was this handbook for Jeffrey Epstein's estate, which, by the way, looked like Floridian like grandparent retirees from like, Boca. Like that's the way the house looked and everything else. It was so bizarre when I saw the pictures. But she had this handbook that was like, don't look at, Lady Ghislaine and Master Epstein. And I remember one of the people who were on the stand, his name was Juan, I believe. And she insisted that he change his name to John. I mean, it was just the way they treated the staff was so impersonal. They weren't allowed to discuss their personal lives. They didn't want them to be human at all. And when I looked into that, because that bothered me so much, because I just think you know so much about people when they treat like the bussers or the servers at a restaurant terribly. You just know a lot about them. This was that on steroids. And I remember looking into it, and all of the folks that were on our channel that were from England was like, this is totally normal. And I'm like, no, it's not. There's nothing normal about treating the people who are in your home every single day, literally washing your vibrators, because that was one of Juan's jobs, washing the vibrators in the sex basket that they had the massage room. And him not being able to use his own name. It like that says everything you need to know about that woman. And I think that there's a chip missing. And in my opinion, if she ever sees your amazing show, I believe her job to redeem herself in this life, her soul is to come forward and say something.
Yeah.
And be an advocate. I mean, she's the only one who's taken the fall.
Yeah.
So
it's totally true. Yeah. Well, gosh,
isn't it ironic that all of these men have done this and a woman is in prison?
It says it all. It really does. It really does.
It really does. It drives me nuts. And then a woman got fired for being really good at her job.
Yeah. It's all. Yeah. Well, God, I'm really glad you came on. Thank you so much. And, I'll be tell everyone where they can follow you.
Well, at Ivy Family Farms is our TikTok channel. That's the one where I do a lot of reporting. However, we're getting, community guidelines. So at Shannon_Ivy is my backup account. And I'll keep talking about this.
But you're also on Instagram, and you post there too. So what's the Instagram?
At Ivy Family Farms, and it's IVEY. Yeah.
So maybe just follow that, because I know it still pops up.
And your show is amazing too. It's So fun. And you do such good work.
Well, good. I mean, I like to have it fun, but it's, this is super juicy, and you got so much info out, and I really appreciate you going for it. So, and everything that you do on your farm and for kids and everything is just amazing. So just keep fighting along. I really appreciate you.
Oh, you've got such a good heart. You're good people, Heather McDonald.
Thank you so much.
Hey,
Bye.
you're welcome. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Wow, that was so informative and so very juicy. Now for some real fun juice with my good friend, Carlos King. Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. I have return guest, third time actually, because Carlos King, we did a show here in LA, Woodland Hills Studios. You did my live show in New York, which was such a big hit. And now you're back here in LA. Welcome back, Carlos King.
Thanks for having me back. Listen, I love you. I love the scoopers. I'm a juicy scooper.
I know. Okay, so Lisa Rinna has left Beverly Hills. And I didn't talk about it. I saved it for you. When I saw it, I did write her.
Is this a juicy scoop exclusive?
It's not that juicy.
Oh.
I just said, I think everybody doesn't know what to say in those situations. So I said, congrats on leaving the show. I love your Rinna beauty. I'm wearing the lipstick stuff now. It is the best. I tell everybody. And I said, come on, Juicy Scoop. Let's sell the shit out of that Rinna beauty.
Yes.
And she did just a bunch of hearts.
Aww.
And I just let it be.
Listen, I love her. Do I think she left? No. Allegedly.
Yeah.
I don't think she left. Listen.
No.
We know this being in Hollywood and being in the business. And I know this being a former Housewives producer who did 9 years of Atlanta and 2 years of Jersey. It's like the mafia. You just don't leave. And if you do leave, like Lisa Vanderpump left because she didn't want to deal with her actions.
Didn't want to do the reunion.
Yeah, Lucy Apple Juicy.
Yes.
There were reasons for that. Lisa Rinna is a working actress who's been in the business for a long time. You're not going to leave your longest running gig. It's hard to get a gig in Hollywood, especially, and this is a bad thing, especially for women over a particular age. The doors aren't knocking like they used to. They're knocking for Kimberly Noel Kardashian, not Lisa fucking Rinna. So I feel sad that she got let go, allegedly. But
So why did they let her go? Why do you think they let her go?
I'm going to tell you something.
I do want you to tell me something.
I believe the casting decisions from these executives are now being made based off of Twitter. The response that these housewives are getting on Twitter. Lisa Rinna became highly unlikable her last 2 seasons. And the Twitter mafia of the Housewives mob, they were very, very vocal about their disdain for Lisa Rinna. Is the reason why my friend Tamara Judge got let go, Dorinda Medley, Vicky Gulbinson, is based upon the atmosphere of Twitter. And because Lisa Rinna got booed at BravoCon.
And then she did the flip off. I was there.
Yeah. And listen.
But the audience kind of loved it. They kind of cheered. They kind of were like, all right, give it back to us, girl.
Yeah, and I also think a lot of it was the fact that, listen, as the creator of shows and as somebody who casts reality stars, it's not in your best benefit to diss the hand that fed you.
Right.
Right?
Well,
so
also,
I think all of that was just like, went into the
also
decision.
on In the Housewives, she was like, then put me on pause, Andy.
Yeah.
And, but I also think, obviously it all came down to, are you Kathy Hilton or are you Lisa Rinna? What's the truth? And, and I really think this accusation that, again, there was no audio or visual of it, which is Kathy Hilton in a fit of rage of not having this DJ play her best friend LaToya's brother's music, Michael Jackson. She at one point threw out the racial slur.
Yes.
Not racial.
No, the gay slur.
Homophobic slur.
She said the F word.
Yes, the homophobic slur. And this got out there.
Yes.
And I think the people that allegedly heard it, which is Lisa Rinna, thought, well, my God, half of the Bravo audience are gay men. And won't they be furious with this? And they fucking weren't. They weren't.
They were not.
They were like, hey, you've been drinking all day in Aspen. You had a rough day. You wore slippers in the airport. You wanted to listen to Michael Jackson, and they wouldn't play it. And you're a 62-year-old woman, and it came out of your mouth. We know you aren't trying to take our rights away to get married. And you gave us Paris Hilton, and we'll never turn our back on you. And they just didn't really care. And then everybody else was like, why does she keep bringing it up? And I think part of the reason she brought it up was because I think she was being a good little writer, producer, actress.
For sure.
And so she'd come to the party of Crystal's whatever 1920s party, and she would bring it up. And I even think she might have gotten some pats on the back or a wink or whatever from the producers. But to the people at home who are really thinking they're watching a reality show are like, God, Lisa, like, let it go. You're causing problems for Kyle and her sister. Like,
yes.
Who cares? And so then the division happened. And, of course, it caused a lot of stress for Kathy and blah, blah, blah. And so I think that happened. And then the other thing I think happened was the messiness with the social media.
Oh, yeah.
And this crazy kid, Patrick Summers, if he exists or not, if he's a woman, if he's a man, if he's a catfish, if he's Andy Cohen himself, I don't fucking know.
Ooh, okay, theory.
Who the hell knows who this cat is? But he threw himself in, and I wonder if, like, I don't think Lisa ever was like typing or anything or getting these awful things to say to Garcelle's son or whoever.
No way.
No way. But I think somehow she, one night when she was dancing alone in her Free People sweats on her Mexican paver floors by herself and her sponge yellow painted walls. And Harry hasn't been seen. He's been making sauce for 12 hours. She gets on the phone and these fans start coming in, or like DMs, and she befriends some of these people that she doesn't know from Adam.
Yeah.
But she's happy that she thinks she's got a fan and a friend. And somehow it got messy. Somehow there's some weird connection. And it's like, you know what? We should just put you on pause. Let's let this story die because it could be very, very bad for you.
Yeah, I agree with that. No, I do. And listen, Lisa Rinna did not help herself. And that's the reason why when you are a housewife, and this is not a reality star, not the chick from 90 Day Fiancé, not the teen mom in Idaho. When you are a housewife, you have this tsunami of fans who are in your DMs, and you have to know when to cut the shit. You have to separate that from your life. And the problem with Lisa Rinna, I think she had too much time on her hands. I agree with you. I think she allowed the fans to really get to her. Mm-hmm. And it was sad to see because she is a professional woman in Hollywood where she was taught, you sort of let that world be that world and not let it impact your life. She became unlikable. I used to love Lisa Rinna. I am not a Kathy Hilton stan. Do I believe Kathy said the F word? Yes, I do. I'm a gay man. I believe it. But I'm going to say something to you. As much as I believe she said it, Lisa Rinna was so unlikable that I, too, as a gay man, said, Lisa, shut the fuck up. Who cares anymore? And I'm being honest about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because Lisa was so unlikable. You brought this little envelope from Kinko's. There was nothing in it.
Wait, was that at the reunion?
At the reunion.
Okay, all right.
She walked out with this manila envelope, okay? Like she was the main juror on a trial. She hid it behind her pillow and never once brought it out. And then the fans were like, what happened to this envelope? Where's your receipts? Andy Cohen said on his radio show, oh, it was nothing about what Kathy said, it was other stuff.
I think was it the Elton John stuff?
The Elton John stuff.
And it just wasn't juicy enough for the show.
Fuck?
Yeah.
Who gives a fuck? The problem is this. Lisa Rinna did not do herself any favors by biting the hand that feeds her. You have to learn this is a game of politics. You have to understand that, look, although the fans are reading me for filth, they're booing me at BravoCon, I know that at the end of the day, none of those motherfuckers are signing my paycheck. And now Lisa Rinna is forced to stay at home and help Harry Hamlin with his lines.
Yeah.
That's what she's been reduced to. I think she's sad, and I'm going to say this to you. I feel bad for her. She lost her mom, and now she lost her job. And I think we all need to give her some grace for that, because that's tough. And you know this because you know her personally. That's really sad when you really think about it that way. But I do think, like Tamra Judge, she's going to be put on pause for one season, and I think next season she'll come back.
It's what she should do. Really sell this fucking lipstick, because it is really good.
Is it really good?
It really is so good. Anyway, I just like it so much. Anyway, focus on that. And then I think there's a possibility that they have another reality show with her family. I don't think she should take it.
I'm not watching that.
I don't think she should take it. I don't think it's good for her girls. I don't think it's good for her family.
No way.
I think she should focus, enjoy, go on some trips, whatever, go on modeling with the daughters. Definitely go on the next Ultimate Girls trip.
Yes.
And have fun like that. And stay relevant that way and have fun that way. But maybe you don't ever have to be on the show regularly. I mean, she is 60 or close to it. She's got such a good body. She looks so good.
So good.
Why don't you go back and be on a Lifetime? Just have some fun. I know it won't pay as much as Housewives, but you have money. You'll be fine.
Your house is paid for.
Yeah, we're good.
You're good. You're good. But I will say this. If Crystal and Dorit are back, that's a fucking problem.
So what do you think should happen there?
If you got rid of Lisa Rinna and you're keeping Dorit, that's a slap in the face to Lisa Rinna.
Well, of course, Lisa Rinna, I think she's always brought stuff. She was the one Munchausen's. That was juicy stuff.
Yes.
And we were all thinking it. And whether it was fed to her by a fan herself or Lisa Vanderpump or a producer, who cares? It got us a juicy show. So she always kept it moving along with looking gorgeous, being funny, and being kind of a hoot. So, I think, did her head get too big? Whatever. Maybe, but she was never mean like a Dorinda.
No, she wasn't a mean drunk.
She wasn't mean.
And I love Dorinda, but she wasn't a mean drunk.
She wasn't mean.
She was funny, but that's the reason why, listen, as a former Housewives producer, I will say this to you. I also blame the producers of that show. Because they should have reeled Lisa Rinna in and saying, look, girl, this is too much. Calm down a bit, because I can tell you this. Once this shit airs, they're going to turn on you. Thank you for giving us the story Kathy Hilton. We appreciate that. But let us help you navigate through that. I'm hoping they gave her that sort of grace, because when you look at the season, and I'm going to just say it, Dorit and Crystal are the most boring Beverly Hills Housewives I have seen since Carlton. I'm over
Carlton was the witch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who put some voodoo on Kyle, allegedly.
Yeah.
Dorit is modeling her dresses that we haven't seen the payoff of. She fucking decorated the corner of an Italian restaurant that Joe Gorga used to own. Do you know what I mean? No one cares about that. Crystal, to me, is a liar, liar, pants on fire. Not the leather pants she wore that was so ugly. The other pants. I believe Crystal heard Kathy Hilton say the F word. But because Crystal is involved in this very exclusive 90210 friendship group.
And friends with Kathy.
Yes, she protected Kathy. Crystal's alliance is to Kathy Hilton and her friend group, not the 14 who dropped her like a bad habit. I'm talking about this very exclusive friendship group that Kathy Hilton's a part of. She's more loyal to that than the show. Crystal is like watching paint dry.
Well, I think Crystal is gorgeous.
Beyond.
And she is in love with her husband, and she's a good mom, and she's rich, and that is just not what makes a good housewife.
No.
Like, it makes a good person walking on this earth.
A great human being.
But yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I think she'll stay, and we'll see what happens, and maybe they'll bring in some other girls that she has history with that could be kind of fun for her to like have some fun or some disagreements with or whatever. But I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, no, Lisa Rinna's departure is a loss to the show. And unless they have somebody who's going to get in there and do the dirty work, because again, she knew how to stir the pot. None of those girls are doing that. I'm a huge fan of Kyle Richards. Unpopular, I know, but who gives a fuck?
Right. Well, I think everyone likes Kyle.
It's funny, but again, when you base this off of Housewives Twitter, they hate Kyle.
But
But it's not the real world.
Right. I mean, if 1 million people are watching and only like 300 are tweeting about it, I don't know why you would take the advice of the 300 tweeters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kyle is the mainstay of the show, but Kyle knows not to get her hands super dirty. Erica Jane, to me, is fascinating. She's a great villain. I love her to pieces.
Yeah.
I think she's great. But she also had Lisa Rinna to sort of like be that Thelma to her Louise. There is not one person, at least Garcelle's not doing it.
No.
Sutton ain't doing shit. Who is going to be the messy messenger? We thought Brandy Glanville, but she's doing Ultimate Girls Trip for the 15th time.
And they're not going to ask her to be back on Housewives. I don't think so, ever. Unless she marries someone really rich or is dating someone really rich.
Well, that's not happening.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, we'll see what happens, but it'll be exciting. Lisa Vanderpump, she reacted to it. There's no reason. She'll never come back. There's no reason to. She's got Vanderpump rules.
No need.
Our Diana Jenkins left as anyone. It is really crazy when they, I don't have it here, but they did like her old face with his face. And it really, can you look up her old face with his face?
Oh, really?
I have never seen someone that looks so unrecognizable. She was a pretty person before, but it's like she got more than lip injections. She got like a lip lift and a nose job and then filler in her face. And it's like, I mean, honestly, like if she was your friend, you would not be able to recognize her like walking in an airport. You wouldn't. It's crazy.
Was she like running away from the police and like is she on the run?
I don't know. It's just one of those like plastic surgery faces that are like look so incredibly different. It's like, that one? Yeah. Let me just send that. Like, yeah, look how different it is. Yeah, she was weird and boring, and it didn't work out.
She only did this show to get famous. That was it.
And then you realize, you know what, being famous isn't fun when everybody's writing you horrible things. Look at that.
Oh my God. She looks like one of those people that was on Rock of Love.
Yeah, she looks so different. Like, so different.
Oh, wow.
I think she just got like a lot of filler in her face or something.
Absolutely.
Anyway, there you go.
Bye, Diana.
Bye, Diana. So she's gone. We knew that was going to happen. Oh, wait, let me go back to this. Hold on. Okay. So Diana's gone. Okay. Did you hear that? She just got fired from Southern Charm, Kathryn.
What's the tea?
Okay, so the tea on Kathryn Dennis. She's been on for 8 years on Southern Charm. Do you know much about Southern Charm?
I know a little bit about it.
She was an original cast member. She was 21 when she joined, and a pretty tall, redheaded girl, and got with this guy on it who was this 50-year-old man, had 2 kids out of wedlock in between breakups with him. She's had drug issues. She's had fighting with the kid, like, you know, custody with this guy. He's had accusations of sexual assault. In the end, he now has custody of this like 7 and 6-year-old girl. She leaves him. They're broken up. His name is Thomas Ravenel. And
yes.
She gets with this other guy who coincidentally has the same last name, Ravenel, which is like this big name in the South.
Yeah.
Like they own bridges. But he's black. but his last name was Ravenel.
Oh.
And he's cute, and they're a couple, okay? And they're a couple.
Fascinated.
They're a couple. And there was some things of her being accused in a Twitter back and forth of her being racist. So then she gets this boyfriend who's black, and people are like, why
How
are you doing that?
convenient.
But they're a couple, like, for a while. And then she says, then there's accusations or something going on that did he physically assault her, and she had a black eye. They do a full investigation. There's no proof that he did anything. It could have been a filler. We don't know. Anyway, for all those reasons, I'm assuming, just my opinion, they're like, goodbye. You're just too much. Also, she wouldn't show up to stuff.
Oh, bye.
She was a diva. She wasn't good to the production team. She was constantly drama, and she wasn't really that clever anymore. It was just something weird and sad. She was always like freaking, and they're always like, is she okay? It wasn't a good friend. She's just a big flake. So I don't know what, but she's been on the show since she was 21 years old. And I really wonder, when you're already an unstable person and a third of your life was just being a star for doing nothing, making money, having people be like, Kathryn,
Yes.
when you didn't write a song, you weren't an actor. Now you're 30 and you've been dumped from this show. Like, wow, if I was someone close to her, I'd be a little bit scared about where she's going to end up.
Well,
I guess
that's the
OnlyFans is the first thing.
Danielle Staub's on OnlyFans too. Did you know that?
Did you know that Denise Richards did a 60% off sale for the holidays?
What is she selling?
OnlyFans.
But what is she selling on OnlyFans?
Sexy stuff.
Have you seen it?
No, but I mean, all the way those girls really make their money is they correspond almost like a webcam girl, like DMing with certain men. Like they make the money for someone paying $10 or $20 a month to see their sexy photos. But the way you really make the money is you get a guy, to start to talk to you. And okay, for $100, I'll talk to you. For, $1,500, I'll do a video chat with you.
Oh,
That's how you really, really, and I don't know that she's doing that. But the 60% off for the holidays, and she wore like a Santa outfit. You know what it made me say? I go, I am so glad that I never was that hot.
Heather, I mean, with the Lisa Rinna beauty makeup, I think you look very hot today.
I'm happy, but I'm saying, like, sometimes being a really attractive person, whether you use it for acting or not, is kind of such a curse, because it's always like, if you didn't have to develop anything else, and she is an actress and stuff, but then she gets in this position, which is, I believe, Charlie Sheen, who was giving her so much money. The kids are now over 18. She has a third child she adopted who's special needs. She has the Aaron boyfriend who had the weird business of whatever that was.
Yeah.
With a very expensive office, real estate-wise, in Malibu, right on PCH. Don't know if he still has it. I don't know how many people were really going to him for like wave therapy or whatever it was. Then she gets let go from the Housewives. And she's going to Canada, doing these crappy movies, and then her daughter does OnlyFans, and she's like, I guess I'll do OnlyFans. There's still a bunch of, guys.
A mother-daughter special?
They don't do stuff together, but I think she was like, look, there's a bunch of still, 50-year-old creeps that have been jerking off to me since I made out with that girl in the pool or whatever. And they live at their
Guilty as charged as a teenage boy.
and they live at their mother's house, and they've got extra income to have an OnlyFans
and
girlfriend.
extra lube. Yeah, so the thing is this. I think Kathryn needs to do that. Listen.
No shame in the game. Go.
I'm going to tell you guys this as a reality producer. There's no life after Bravo for you. Breaking news 911. And the network knows that, which is why when they get let go of the show, you can't go anywhere. Because newsflash, when you try to pitch a former housewife to another network, they don't want her. And the feedback that you get is this person is so branded as a housewife that she does nothing for our network. Now, listen, there's different rules to the system, right? One may get involved and make that way, but 99% of them, there isn't life after Bravo for you. There just isn't in terms of getting back on television. So, Kathryn, listen, Denise Richards arguably is an icon for all of the teenage boys like myself who whacked off to her when they were a teen. But after Housewives, nothing has happened to her career. And you would think like she would do more movies that Kyle Richards in. She's in the box office Halloween movie, brought Jamie Lee Curtis on the show. Denise Richards came and bring Charlie Sheen to do a scene at a lunch spot with the daughter.
Yeah. So
it's going to be hard for Kathryn to do anything outside of being a lack of a Southern Belle.
Yeah. So that's the scoop there. Okay, let's talk about New Jersey.
Oh boy, you got me in trouble, Heather McDonald.
You got me in trouble.
Heather,
you got me in trouble.
How?
Melissa's not happy with me.
What did she say?
First of all, you came on here.
Oh, you're blaming me?
And you shared. No, I loved it. I loved it. You shared the age-old question. Was Theresa blindsided? Was Melissa campaigning to get on this show? And yes, it has been proven through Daniel Staub and everybody else, she wanted to be on the show. Does that make her a bad person? No, but she wasn't honest with her sister. And then some other things have come out that she has allegedly was, kind of excited to go at her in this situation. We don't know. So Melissa then reached out to me and was like, I'm so hurt, because I like Joe and Melissa. I one time interviewed them on Wendy when I was guest hosting. I had her come on my a live Juicy Scoop a few years ago with Margaret. I went out to dinner with them. I liked them as a couple. And I was like, and I wrote back to her and I go, what does it even really matter?
But I'm sorry, not to cut you off. What is she? I'm sorry.
What?
Listen, I don't have anything against Melissa and Joe.
Yeah.
I'm not like, oh, fuck you guys. But what is she mad at? I'm so confused. Why is she mad at you?
She said to me that she did tell Theresa that they were coming to her shore house to interview her. So her account, from what she shared with me, is that Theresa being blindsided is not true. She may have not known that we got it, but she knew that I was talking to them and was like, good, go, good luck. And so where it all gets confusing with me is that true? But then can both things be true at the same time? So then did all of a sudden they signed the contract and everything, and at no point did Theresa or Melissa or Joe say, oh my God, we just did the shore interview. They said I'm on. This is going to be amazing. And apparently the first day that we're going to be shooting as really being active parts is when you come to our son's christening. Now, maybe they didn't because maybe the producers were like, don't tell because we're hoping for something. Then I heard that Theresa said on her show that it got back to her through her mother or something, that Joe, remember how it was so weird for a viewer at home to be like, she's like, hey, congratulations on your son's christening. And then he just got really angry and and she's like, Jesus. And he's freaking out and he's like, that's my father. And I'm like, why is he so mad that his father was a good father-in-law to Joe Giudice? I'm like, what do we, as a viewer, it was very weird. So now Theresa says that it got back to her that apparently he planned on having that kind of outburst because her outburst of flipping the table made her the most iconic housewife ever. And that has just come back to her. That's just come to her now. And so, but the other side of it where I was saying to Melissa was, I was like, Melissa, what does it really, I don't get why, I get why maybe this is why throughout the years they can come together, they can hate each other, they can come together, they can have a couple laughs, they can support each other with their kids, whatever. But why it always comes down to this thing, but I'm also I get it, Theresa was on first, okay? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, Melissa and Joe have been a huge part of the show for whatever. Theresa's been on for 15, they've been on for 13. At this point, it's Come
No, I
on.
agree- and I
They're
agree with that.
talented and very fun to watch as well. Like,
I've said that too. And again, for the Melissa Gorga stands, I don't have an issue with Melissa. However, I am friends in real life with Teresa Giudice. We're friends.
yeah.
I can only tell you the truth as it is to me. And in Teresa's defense, honestly, her story has never changed. It just hasn't. I don't know Melissa like that. I like to focus on the facts. Melissa's story has changed a couple of times in terms of, no, she did know. And then I say, no, she found out you guys were on the show based on, her being asked to come to this event. Well, we told her we were auditioning. You see what I'm saying? It gets confusing.
But you know what I can kind of compare it to?
What?
Is I just thought of this. I kind of think it's like where, okay, you have a really good friend. You absolutely adore this really good friend, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you now are friends with some kind of exciting people that this friend would die to be invited to. And they're, but you're like, I just kind of like having these friends to myself.
Yeah.
And I kind of like seeing you as my sister-in-law and having sprinkle cookies with you over here, okay? And then it's like, oh, then the friend goes, oh, I ran into the exciting friends at this restaurant and we had such a good time. We said we both love you. Anyway, we exchanged numbers and anyway, I know you're out of town next weekend, but the four of us are all getting together. And you're like, wait a minute. I don't really know if I want these two worlds to all collide. I kind of like keeping these fabulous friends to myself.
For sure.
So put that now on a reality show that's a job and stuff. And I do think she was like, not necessarily like, I just don't think it ever entered Teresa's mind that they might be chosen. But she definitely didn't want it. She didn't suggest it. She didn't, because of all those reasons. I want to be the star and I want to have this be part of my life. And I want to be able to see you when I visit my parents and our kids play together. And like, I think it was more that. I don't think it was like, I'm so jealous of Melissa. I don't want her to also have the fun that I have.
That.
It was more just like, I really don't know that I want these worlds to collide. And once they got cast, she knew now the landscape of what I thought my future would be as a television star and a sister-in-law, it will never be the same. And it's,
And it hasn't been. So
No.
So on my podcast, Reality with the King, Teresa was a guest a few weeks ago.
yeah,
She said, similar to what you're saying,
yeah,
that based on, and let's think about this. Teresa was on the show season 1, along with Dina Manzo and Caroline Manzo and
Right.
Jacqueline Larita.
right,
Two sisters who married a set of brothers
Right.
and their sister-in-law.
right.
Right? She saw firsthand the drama of what this family was going through. And what Teresa has seen, obviously, she was like, I will never want to go through that.
Right.
Teresa was never jealous of Melissa joining the show. Teresa, to your point,
Yeah.
was like, this is my thing.
Right.
And I don't want to bring my brother, who I do have this very sensitive relationship with, on the show. Because I've seen for 2 years what this show has done to families. And to Teresa's credit, Teresa was extremely close to her parents. And her parents worshiped the ground Teresa walked on. And she did not want to display that to hurt her parents.
Right.
So whether or not Melissa gave her the heads up, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. Me and Teresa are so close. Teresa would have called me to say, guess what? Melissa interviewed for the show. Teresa never called me with that. When Teresa called me on a sunny afternoon on a Sunday, East Coast time, she was extremely hurt. Based on me knowing this woman, I find it hard to believe that she had a heads up. Her reaction was, can you fucking believe Melissa is going to be on the show with my brother? And I'm scared of what to do. Teresa was close to quitting the Real Housewives of New Jersey that day. I talked her into continuing on with the show. She was really like, I would rather keep the peace than continue on with this show. And I said, look, bitch, you are the show. Like, there's no show without you. That's why she kept doing the show. Because
Right.
I convinced her to do it. She was ready to quit. So for people to say, like, oh, it's because she's jealous, Theresa, when she spoke to Joe Gorga, Theresa revealed on my podcast that her mother, may she rest in peace, told her, your brother planned that because he wanted a moment like your table flip moment, and he knew what to do with it. Which is why the producers told Theresa, go talk to your brother. So when you watch that scene, Joe is conveniently sitting at a fucking round table by himself, and Teresa's walking with a little Gia, like, well, great party. The fuck you doing over here? You're garbage. And she's like, wait, what?
Yeah, it came out of nowhere as a viewer.
And there you have it.
Yeah.
There you have it.
That's crazy.
So listen, Melissa, I
Yeah.
know you're listening.
Yeah.
This isn't shade to you. This is what I would like for Melissa to do. Because I agree with you. I think if she says, look, New Jersey, especially Franklin Lakes, is a small town. Did I want to get on TV? Fuck yeah. I saw what it did to Teresa's career. I want some of that action. I think we all can say, well, at least she's honest about it. At
Yeah.
least she's honest about it. And to your point, and I've said this, as much as I love Teresa, and that's my girl, Melissa and Joe Gorga are good for the show. They're good for the show. They're great television.
Yeah.
So at this point, it's been 13 years. It's fine. You made it.
And you know what's interesting is I was reading her latest book. Like
Whose?
Teresa's. I just had it and I just started to read. I started to read some of it. And she said how she wanted to take dance lessons and all this stuff, but her mom was an immigrant and she didn't drive. She didn't know how to get her there. And I thought that was interesting because Melissa, too, you know, was into dance and music. So it's like and that's what I find so interesting about the Housewives is many of them as little girls dreamed of being famous and stuff, but none of them did the work. They got married, they had kids, and then all of a sudden, wait, there's a job for someone that's done nothing but been a rich, pretty mom. Would you like to be on TV? And it's like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's what it is. But do you think there's more of a chance of Teresa and Joe and Melissa mending their sibling relationship or Harry and William?
It's more plausible
Yes.
for Harry, William, Meghan, and Kate to have a double date at P.F. Chang's
Don't say that.
in Sacramento, California than it is for Teresa, Joe Gorga, and Melissa Gorga to ever have a relationship. I think the door is closed forever and ever. Teresa's done. I think listen, Teresa did not reveal too much about what's to come this upcoming season. Listen, and this is the thing. I know Teresa. When she tells me something, she means it. Teresa is done.
Well, the day that she met was one of my favorite moments in housewife history. She meets with Rosie. And what's the other one? Kathy?
Kathy Wikili.
Yeah, and Rosie. And the day that they realized that their gravy train was done, because she was like, I'm done. You said shit about my parents. You were totally awful and not supportive of me at the hardest time of my life. The only reason you're on the show is because you're my cousins. And if I'm not going to fuck with you, there's no scenes. Bye. And it was, no one thinks you're so hilarious now, Rosie. Where are you? Where is Rosie?
Life After Bravo.
By the way, speaking of shows about life after Bravo and things like that, have you seen any of the Special Forces show on Fox? I literally had nightmares about it last night. My friend Dr. Drew is on it. He leaves the first episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He left or got kicked off?
No, he got so sick.
Oh.
He got totally dehydrated. They're like in Jordan, like it's just crazy. But the people and stuff that they chose, but it also sounds like hands down for me, you would have to, I don't even know if I would do it for $10 million.
Oh.
It is so physically awful and hard. And like, like it's basically like to be a Navy SEAL. It is so, I don't know, but it's kind of a weird show. And it's a mixed match of really weird people. It's like Kate Gosselin, she leaves the first day, and then there's like Jamie Lynn Spears and Hannah Brown from The Bachelor, some like tall, good-looking black guy who's like, yeah, I don't know sports
The NBA
people.
player?
Yeah.
What?
Then there's this 41-year-old woman who was on Seventh Heaven.
What?
Her last credit was Seventh Heaven. And all I could think about was how many people down the list of like reality sports, like of the pool. Then that other guy that was like the White House correspondent or
Scaramucci is on it?
he worked for Trump for 11 days. He was already on Dancing with Stars. He's on it.
And what's the premise? What are you getting in the end?
I don't know I hope they get a big chunk of money in the end because I don't know why everyone wouldn't quit after 3 hours. I literally had nightmares about it that I was there. And Kenya Moore's on it. So far, she's, making it work.
Good.
She's like,
Yeah.
she jumped out of the helicopter backwards and like passed the thing.
Oh my
Then you're supposed to
gosh.
do this like the worst kind of zip lining situation. I don't know. I literally was like, and then it's just like these hot guys that just like, are talking about who they think is the bigger loser. I don't know. It's just that I was just like, it's like.
So do we think Rosie and Kathy are going to sign up for season 2?
No, but I'm saying like, maybe, because I don't know who else is going to go to the Middle East in 100-degree weather and like jump out of helicopters. And like, I mean, the physical stuff is so hard. I don't know. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Okay, well, that's all good. Of course, we're excited to watch this show. Jackie,
I can't wait.
I guess Jackie got a little bit demoted. Who cares? She's fine.
Yeah, listen, I like Jackie, but I heard that the 2 new girls are bringing it.
Good.
And that this season, I was told this season is by far one of the best.
Well, I mean, I love all the girls.
I love Jersey so much.
I like Jennifer. I like Margaret, Dolores. God, talk about a great plastic surgery glow up.
Gorgeous.
Gorgeous. Teresa, of course. I love Melissa. Jackie. Her
I love
husband's
them
hot.
all.
It's all good.
It's a great cast.
It's great. Now,
Speaking of black eyes,
yes. So, Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. What is your thought as a producer of the visceral anger that the fans have felt over the milking out of Heather Gay's black eye? Who is to blame? Who should you get angry with?
I think Heather herself. The thing is this. You cannot be on this show. Because what was interesting about Salt Lake City, in my opinion, once Jen Shah was accused and then found
Right.
later to be guilty of committing those crimes, they tried to position Heather as the face of the franchise. To me,
Yes.
when you are the face of the franchise, Teresa Giudice, Kyle Richards,
Right.
you have to give the audience everything. And based on what Heather has presented with her black eye, that we kind of saw an episode before, it was a little purple. So for me, look, I think she's being overly dramatic about it because she needs a storyline. Heather this season is boring. I stopped watching the show after episode 5 because I couldn't take any more of it.
But what about the choir? Don't you want to know what's going to happen with the choir?
Absolutely not. I don't care about this show anymore. And I'm gonna tell you why. What was interesting about Salt Lake City, besides the snow, was this idea of Jen Shah.
Yeah.
And how amazing she was. You made us want to know more about this crazy character. You lost her. Then you lost Mary Cosby, who was so interesting and different.
Okay, but they're both have suspicious lives.
Yes,
Okay.
but that's the good thing. Because think about it. When you think about Salt Lake City, you only think about the Sundance Film Festival. So to know you had these 2 women of color who were colorful, you're sort of like, there's something interesting about that I haven't seen before within this landscape of Salt Lake City.
I really think that the milking out of the black eye is what is going to be the demise if this doesn't come back.
You think they're over with?
I don't know. I mean,
Are you into this season?
I watch it, but I do get bored, and I sometimes have to watch it in a couple stages. And I like Whitney. I'm scheduled to interview Whitney. I do want to know more about Whitney's life. I feel like I don't know about her life, and I'm curious to know about it. I like Heather. I've gone out and had fun with Heather. What happened with Heather and her black eye is I think she got really drunk that night when she was smashing naked tits with Jen Shah and everything. And I think she like slipped or fell or hit her eye or whatever. And the next morning when she woke up, I think she and the producers concocted this thing to have a storyline. Also, I think they were worried about possibly her getting so drunk while on set and hurting herself. And I think then I think she was like, okay, and then you can reveal the story in your book. That's what I've heard. I heard she reveals the story in the book. Yeah, I heard she reveals it in the book of what happened.
And you expect us to buy that book? To go to not you meaning Heather.
I know it's only going to take one Bravo person to read the book and tell us.
I'd rather have that. Yes, yeah. Please. I'll go to like Queens of Bravo to understand what happened.
I'll go to the Barnes and Noble and read it and then not buy it.
Like I do all my books.
Yeah.
No. So the thing about it is this. I actually agree with you. I don't think Jen Shah punched her in the eye. I'm going to tell you the death of Heather when she was in her confessionals. With her Britney Spears weave.
Yeah.
And the bleach blonde. And she's like, I'm trying to protect myself. Like, what do you mean protect? I'm protecting myself. It was like, what is happening here? Like, against who? Like, it was so dark and so weird that me and Meghan McCain were texting and was like, this shit is awful. It's bad. Salt Lake City needs to go wherever Lisa Rinna's at because I'm over this franchise. It started off to be very interesting, but I think they jumped the shark.
Well, also, I don't know that we're going to know what really happened to Whitney's childhood. So there's all these storylines.
We'll learn on Dancing with the Stars.
We'll learn when she goes on Dancing with the Stars?
Life After Bravo.
Oh, okay. But... So she'll get Dancing with the Stars, Whitney. She's
gorgeous, good body. Yeah, okay. For sure.
But like with Heather, I think that the best thing Heather did was have that beauty lab. I think the beauty lab is a great idea, and I think she will be a good businesswoman in Salt Lake City after. I do think she did enjoy the limelight a little bit too much. And I think got a little full of herself.
Oh, yeah.
And with this, like, I'm trying to protect myself. I also saw this. I didn't even think about it. What also I think really pissed off people is there are people that are victims of domestic violence.
Yes.
And then someone even said, like, is she stealing your thing? Because when I fainted on stage in Tempe, when I fell back and cracked the back of my head, my skull, that's what caused the black eyes. And, and I let everyone know what that was. But, like, I didn't milk it out for publicity or anything. I'm like, hey, I got every test. I don't know what it is. I've never fainted since. This is why I have the black eye. It's not because I said Jesus loves me the most. Okay. Like a lot of people think Jesus flicked me. I'm like, so they let all these people die of COVID. But when he heard me like make a light joke that isn't very funny, he was like, screw that bitch. Okay. So I don't believe that. But like, I think, there are victims of domestic violence and stuff, and to hint at it, like, or that someone could have broken into your home when there's like the fucking Idaho murders on our mind, like because you were in that little guest house. Did somebody come in the way they showed the door, and we don't see the door, and we see the door clicking, and like all of this, like I just think people were like, stop, like this is not what we signed up for 10 years ago when we became fans.
Yeah, and I think, listen, I said this on my show, too, that I don't know what's going to happen with the future of these housewives. It to me, it's becoming to the point where instead of being in the moment, they're trying to become the moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we liked it because these women weren't conscious of the cameras, like, or they were self-deprecating. Ramona Singer, Turtle Time, it wasn't something she like jotted in her journal. I'm going to have this moment. We're living now in a time where these housewives have studied the genre and they're trying to one-up each other. And I think Salt Lake City is on its last legs. I don't see a reason for it to come back. It's not that interesting at all. And what Heather is doing kind of goes along the lines of, you women are so desperate to have a moment that is going to be the death of your show.
I know, and that's the thing, is because 10 years ago, whatever, when Luann was being like, be cool, don't be all uncool.
There you
she
go.
wasn't saying that thinking that it was going to be on coffee cups one day.
No.
She wasn't. Or even Potomac, when Robin goes, I am so glad Juan Dixon isn't here.
Yeah.
It's such a weird thing that we all find funny. And, like, why keeps bringing it up? But, like, that wasn't her conscious decision.
Exactly.
And, like, I agree. And when you feel like someone is trying to be, like, what is the iconic thing, or what is it? And in her defense, Heather's defense, if we ever do find out the truth, again, I think she might have just was trying to make it juicy for the show, or even in cahoots with one of the producers, and it just didn't work. It just didn't work.
Yeah, and I think to your point is because they knew they did not have much material this season.
Right. It was only about Jen Shah. And like, really, no, I think this Wednesday is when we finally, get to see that she pleads. But like leading up to this, it's like, oh, is she going to go to trial? Is she not? Okay. Oh, let's talk about, so what do you think about the 6.5 years and what happens to her?
So look, I was surprised that she only got 6.5 years. I did expect more, and I think a lot of that had to do with,
I guess 8.5.
Yeah, the experts.
Yeah.
Listen. Jen Shah was great television. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It does beg the question of, if you have this checkered past, why sign up to do a show where you know what happened to my friend Teresa? Right? Where people who are watching it, they work in all sorts of professions, and they're going to dig and dig and dig.
I think from everything I've studied, is this started out as a scam. It was never a legit business. It started out as a scam, and she did it for 10 years. So when the show came in at year 7, she'd gotten away with it for so long, and she was like, yeah, let's be shamazing, let's show off my life, and just the ultimate narcissist that thinks that she's never going to get caught. And that's it.
And what's crazy about it is, did you read that she told the judge, I still am a star of the show? Like,
no.
Kind of alluding. So she said, I'm still a current cast member of Salt Lake City Housewives. And people said if she got sentenced to 6.5 years, she may do 5, right? You do 80% of your time. So in 5 years, that would make season 8 of Salt Lake City. Do you think there's a world to where she's going to come back to the show? I don't think the show will be on in 5 years.
No, absolutely not.
So I think, unfortunately, listen, I'm happy that the victims got justice, because to pimp out the elderly is fucked up.
And also, it's hopefully will stop other people, because a lot of people do this. And hopefully this harsh sentence will, if you're involved, if you're doing this on the side with your friend or whatever, hopefully you'll quit this year and not get caught and not to be taken away from your family in due time, because she's going to do some hard time for it. What do you think about the fact that what do you think about that restraining order thing?
Ooh, what's that?
Okay, so the restraining order thing is the prosecution, this woman got a restraining order against her because she claimed that Jen Shah was having an affair with her husband. And when she called her out on it, Jen Shah came to her house. And because of that, she filed a restraining order. And she wanted the prosecutor to be aware of it to help get her more time.
Oh my gosh.
And all the rumors about the affair stuff. Do you remember? I don't know if you watched it, but they were like, I dropped her off.
Yes.
And then she got out of the Uber and she went to someone's
yes.
house.
I remember that.
And then there was the rumor of when Meredith and her husband were separated, and they were screwing the same guy in New York.
Yes.
And they were jealous. These all alleged rumors.
Yes.
And someone told me who the guy was. And he was this guy from New York, from Real Housewives of New York, that was like in some of the episodes who was like friendly with Ramona.
Not Harry, though.
No, he was this dark-haired guy that was like kind of big. And I don't want to say who it is because I don't know, but this is all the rumors and I don't know that any of it's
that
true.
That Jen and Meredith were both allegedly sleeping with.
Yes. And so they were like, you know, and then I don't know if that has anything to do with this woman that got the restraining order. Doesn't seem like her dude was that guy in New York because he was definitely not married.
Right.
So I don't know if they have an open relationship. I don't know what their deal is. I don't know he seems to support her now, but at the same time, I mean, he obviously, to never ask about your wife's business when you're an educated man, you're an attorney, and then when she has depositions coming up, you're there to guide her. I'm not saying he had his hands in it, but it makes me think when he knew she was doing this and he was reaping the benefits from all the money, maybe that was the time for him to be like, you know what? I don't need to be an attorney anymore. I don't really love it. And this shit is going on. Let me do what I really love and teach football, coach football.
There's a lot to unpack there because what was also revealed while she was getting sentenced, did you hear about this? That there's audio of Jen talking to, I think, is it the guy? Was it Stu. And she says something along the lines, allegedly, that, oh, don't worry, Coach will get us out of this. Or something like that. That's
not alleged because those are texts that they actually got from the phone.
Yeah,
but
okay.
Yes.
So there you go. So
she said, Coach, she didn't say Coach will get out of it. She said, Coach, I have a spreadsheet in which, you know, of how to answer all these questions, and Coach is going to help me do it.
It begs the question if he knew. Now, look, I want to talk about Erica Jane and Tom Girardi.
Yes.
In my opinion, I don't think Erica knew anything. My opinion. I think she enjoyed the luxury of the private plane, the private glam squad, and the private food. Like, I think she enjoyed all of those perks. I don't think she knew what the fuck he was doing.
Well, he was also doing it for like 30 years.
Exactly.
So when she stepped into the marriage, this is what it was. She was a waitress. She was the third wife, the arm candy. She spend whatever you want. Why? I don't know that she would really know that he was stealing from Paul to pay Peter or whatever the thing is. And like, you know, and then for the people that the money that went paying for her lifestyle and for her money, you know, I know people that did her hair and makeup and stuff, and she paid very well because she could. Mm-hmm. And they would, and you'll get your check from whatever Donna at Girardi and Keys. So when you see the list of where the $25 million went, I mean, that's just like photographers and makeup people and all, and they got paid from there.
Yeah.
And so so how am I going to pay these people? That's fine. Just put all the bills through Donna or whatever her name is. And so like, look, you know, I think she didn't handle the whole thing right. I think she's finally realizing that her persona is, but I don't think anything's going to happen to her.
No, and
as far as like, but she has nothing. She's lost everything. She doesn't, to be married for 22 years and be 50 years old and to be one time living in a $10 million house and now you have a little dollhouse. I mean, it's still, but it's a rental. I mean, you know.
It has a pool.
But she makes $650 a year or whatever, and hopefully she's not blowing it all on Glam Squad and flying them out. And hopefully she learns how to do her own makeup and cut some corners and starts to really like build up a life again for herself.
Yeah. But that's the reason why I brought it up, because when it comes to Coach and Jen Shah, what's different, like you outlined, they were already married when she allegedly started to do what she was doing, right? Like, they were already married.
Yeah.
So, as someone's husband, I think you kind of know what your wife is up to. And that's the reason why it's a little dicey there.
No, Coach knew.
You think
100%.
Yeah.
But he could have also been a little bit, if you believe Erica, a little bit like, I don't need the details. That's your business.
Yeah. It's just crazy. But look, without Jen Shah, the show is going down the drain.
Well, now, the last thing I want to discuss is you have a new juicy-ass show. Grown Gospel on We, coming this March. Yes. I just saw this on your stories. And this is, to me, it looks like a bunch of rich-ass Preachers. These are the private jet preachers. How did this come about? Tell me about this.
So the show is based in Detroit, Michigan, which is my hometown. And these are the offsprings of some legends in the gospel community.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's juicy.
It's the offspring of these gospel royalty in Detroit, Michigan. So
They're the Nepo preachers.
Exactly. So the New York Times, we need a feature about this. So we have the gospel version of Kate Hudson, Gwyneth Paltrow. Yes.
That is juicy.
And it's really about their lives as adults. It's a group of friends who have known each other for over 20 years. And you get a chance to see what happens when you are immersed in this lifestyle of gospel community, the church, and how you kind of want to be like everyone else. We are talking about addiction to drugs. We're talking about alcoholism. We're talking about someone being a stripper. It's really deep. It's really detailed. It's not, poking fun at the church. But what it's doing is really showing you that you could be a part of this world and have a very different lifestyle than your parents. And they are so interesting.
That's awesome.
It's good, Heather.
I didn't get that from the
so that
trailer.
was a little 20-second teaser.
Okay, good.
So more assets will come out, but that's in a nutshell the show. And it premieres in March of this year on WeTV.
I think that's going to be a really good, different show.
Yes. We're talking about some really heavy stuff.
Okay, Carlos, tell everybody where they can follow you, listen to you, all that stuff.
Yeah, so on my social media pages is at @VCarlosKing_. My podcast is called Reality with the King, where we have 2 episodes a week where I interview my celebrity friends in reality television, pop culture, and talk shit. And you can catch my shows, Love and Marriage Huntsville and DC, on the Oprah Winfrey Network.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, you guys, Carlos and I couldn't stop talking, and we got into even more subjects and even deeper dives, and even some stuff that's a little too juicy for the regular show. So where is it landing? On Patreon. It'll be up on Friday on my Patreon. You go to patreon.com/juicyscoop, and it's right there at heathermcdonald.net, however you want to get it if you haven't already signed up. Plus, I will talk about my thoughts about the week and what's going on in the world. It's the juiciest stuff, and it's all on my Patreon. So check it out.